Hi everybody, welcome once again, and in today's video I will explain you the concept of Phillips curve. In 1958, A.W. Phillips drew a diagram by plotting rate of inflation against unemployment rate for United Kingdom for each year from year 1861 to year 1957, and he found a negative relation between rate of inflation and unemployment rate. So when inflation is high, unemployment is low, and when the rate of inflation was low, he found that the unemployment rate was high. 2 years later, two US economists, Paul Samuelson and Robert Solow, replicated Phillips' exercise for United States using data from 1900 to 1960. Apart from high unemployment during 1930s, as shown here, there also appeared negative relation between inflation and unemployment. This relation between inflation and unemployment was labeled by Samuelson and Solow as Phillips curve. Let's first understand the concept of short-run Phillips curve. In short run, here we will be using the concept of aggregate demand and aggregate supply to understand the concept of short-run Phillips curve. Here we have our aggregate demand curve and the corresponding short-run aggregate supply curve, which is an upward sloping curve. Now let's say that there is an increase in aggregate demand, which could be due to any reason, maybe a fall in taxes, or maybe some sort of expansionary monetary policy, or maybe due to increase in government expenditure. So this will lead to a rightward shift in aggregate demand. Now, as a result, at this new point B, where aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply are equal, the price level will rise, and at the same time, the aggregate output in the economy will increase. So both price as well as aggregate output in the economy will increase. Let's say at price level P, the rate of inflation in the economy is 3%, and the rate of unemployment is 5%. With an increase in aggregate demand, there will be an increase in demand for workers. So as a result, the rate of unemployment in the economy will fall. With increase in aggregate demand, more workers will be employed, there will be an increase in aggregate output, and at the same time, since more workers are employed here, there will be a fall in unemployment rate, and at the same time, there is an increase in price level. So corresponding to this increase in price level, as we can see here, in the economy, inflation rate will increase, but at the same time, unemployment rate will fall. So now if we join these 2 points, we get our short-run Phillips curve, which shows inverse relation between rate of inflation and unemployment rate. According to Milton Friedman, the trade-off between inflation and unemployment is applicable in short run, but not in long run. The shape of long-run Phillips curve is a vertical straight line. He used the concept of adaptive expectations to show that in the long run, any rate of inflation can occur in the economy at the natural rate of unemployment. Natural rate of unemployment is the unemployment required to keep the inflation constant. That is why it is also known as the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. According to the theory of adaptive expectations, people form their expectations based on previous period rate of inflation and will change their expectations only when the actual inflation turns out to be different from the expected one. Drawn both short-run aggregate supply curve and long-run aggregate supply curve, and short-run Phillips curve and long-run Phillips curve. At price P, let's say that there is 3% inflation rate in the economy, and the natural rate of unemployment corresponding to this long-run Phillips curve is 5%. At 3% rate of inflation, the rate of unemployment is 5%. Now let's say that there is an increase in aggregate demand due to an expansionary policy of the government, and as a result, the more number of workers will be employed. And here we have assumed that the workers, the nominal wages of the workers are based on their expectations with respect to 3% rate of inflation. So here, with increase in price level and an increase in inflation, more number of workers are hired because of increase in aggregate demand. So there will be a fall in the rate of unemployment from 5 to, let's say, 3%. This is applicable with respect to short-run Phillips curve. With increase in rate of inflation from 3% to 5%, there will be a fall in unemployment rate from 5 to 3 in the short run. But in the long run, the workers will realize that there is a fall in their real wages, and therefore they will start asking for a higher wage rate. So in the short run Phillips curve, we have seen that because of increase in aggregate demand, there is an increase in price level, and increase in inflation leads to because of increase in aggregate demand, more number of workers are employed, and this leads to a fall in unemployment rate. But in the long run, when the workers realize that there has been a fall in their real wages because of an increase in the rate of inflation. Earlier, the wages which were paid to the workers was based on 3% rate of inflation. But now, since the rate of inflation has increased, the workers will now start asking for more wages, which will lead to a shift in the aggregate supply curve leftward. So the economy, instead of moving from point A to B in the long run, in the short run, we have seen that the economy, whenever there was an increase in price level and due to increase in inflation in the economy, the overall rate of unemployment decreased. But in the long run, the workers realize that they are paid less than the rate of inflation, and the excess profits which the firms were earning will now be reduced. So as a result, there will be a fall in the short-run aggregate supply when the workers will start asking for higher wages, and this short-run Phillips curve will shift upward at 5% rate of inflation, and ultimately, as we can see here, that in the long run, we will have this vertical Phillips curve at 5% natural rate, basically at 5% natural rate of unemployment. And so as we can see here, that the long run Phillips curve is a vertical straight line which shows that any rate of inflation can occur in the long run at the natural rate of unemployment.